Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Thanks for joining us here for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Starting off with the fire danger map here, high fire dangers across the north central interior from the Seward Peninsula up in across the Selawik, Noatak valleys, maybe in the Kobuk and Selawik valleys, maybe the Noatak valleys, and then back across the Koyukuk and into the western upper Yukon Valley. Still some areas of extreme fire danger here over the mid-Tanana Valley areas and over the central interior, with some of that high fire danger extending off to the southwest there. And still some pretty high fire dangers here, Madanuska, Susitna Valley areas, southward across Anchorage and Eagle River Valley, down across the central and western Kenai Peninsula areas. Improvement over the Copper River Basin, just an area of high fire danger now, picking up some pretty good rainfall through this area today from Northway on down to Gulkana, Glen Allen, picking up about 4/10 of an inch of rain in the last 24 hours. And moving on to the satellite image, you can see all the clouds that were associated with that area of rain here over the southeast interior. A lot of clouds extending down over the southeast coast as well. That with a general area of rain and showers in that location. Also, rainfall amounts down there ranging from about 1/3 of an inch at Juneau and Sitka to 1/2 an inch at Metlakatla. Otherwise, back out here to the west, we have another system bringing rain with it, the low center right about there. And that sliding eastward here, bringing some rain and gusty winds, 20 to 25 miles an hour, as reported at False Pass and Cold Bay. Rainfall amounts about 1/4 of an inch at Cold Bay, less than that over at Unalaska, and about 1/10 of an inch of rain and fog up there at St. Paul today with that same system. On the chart, just had that dashed in as a trough there. Thunderstorms were scattered across the Kuskokwim Valley this afternoon, as well as the Yukon Delta and up in this area. Also the Kobuk Valley, kind of a trailing edge of some showers here across from the eastern north slope down across the Brooks Range, trailing into the Kobuk Valley. That triggered a few scattered thunderstorms this afternoon there, and then kind of isolated, scattered showers, isolated thunderstorms here over the eastern interior areas. And then the rain across the Copper River Basin, rain and showers down across the southeast coast. Couple of weak lows here in the Gulf of Alaska. We'll see tonight, this low progresses eastward a little bit. That band of rain moves up the Alaska Peninsula and into Bristol Bay. Chances of rain increase there on the southwestern side of Kodiak Island. Otherwise, this 998 millibar low over the Yukon Delta, that'll keep skies mostly cloudy, and showers will stay in the forecast here for much of the southwest interior. Scattered showers over the Kuskokwim Valley, partly to mostly cloudy skies with scattered isolated showers here over south central Alaska. The Copper River Basin, still pretty showery, also up across the Alaska Range there, but areas of smoke again over the central interior areas over toward Galena, up to Indian Mountain, and then down to about McGrath over to Tanana. That's probably where the heaviest concentration of smoke will be tonight. And then we still have a chance of showers up over the eastern Brooks Range area. Fog and low clouds mainly along the central and eastern Arctic coast tonight, working back inland over the eastern North Slope areas. But that offshore flow here from those easterly winds about 10 to 20 miles per hour, that should keep the western coastline there mostly clear, and then a lot of clouds and showers out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians associated with this low pressure area, which continues to track eastward slowly and weaken a little bit. By the time this trough crosses Kodiak Island, probably just looking at a narrow band of showers with that. Back up along the Bristol Bay coastline there, so mostly cloudy, scattered showers again. Thunderstorms here possible through the central interior. Looking at highs tomorrow into the mid to possibly upper 70s here across the central interior up into the upper Yukon, Koyukuk Valley areas, and then cooler conditions with more clouds and showers down to the south. Still looking at bands and surges of moisture rotating north and northwestward into the North Gulf Coast and then pulling back in across southern Alaska. So that's going to keep the southeast coast here mostly cloudy and showery through tomorrow and probably Monday as well. Scattered thunderstorms, the best location tomorrow, most unstable area looks to be over the eastern interior, upper Yukon Valley, 40-mile country from about Eagle southward to the North Waitok area, or even into the eastern Alaska Range area, northeast Copper River Basin, and then back out here over the lower Yukon River Valley area to the Nulato Hills. Scattered showers down over the Kilbrook Mountains, and then sunnier conditions again will be to the north and to the northwest. Looks pretty good both tomorrow and Monday after morning low clouds for the North Slope in the daytime, and then areas of low clouds and fog slower to burn off on the eastern Arctic coast, and it will be on the west side here with those easterly winds continuing about 10 to 20 miles an hour, a few higher gusts around Cape Lisburne and Point Hope, but areas of low clouds and fog extend across the Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait areas down to probably the north side of St. Lawrence Island there. Otherwise, low pressure over the Pribilof Islands keeps that area cloudy and showery through the day on Monday as well as tomorrow, and then shower chances continue for the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians out in this area. And it looks like a little more wetter band of moisture will make landfall along the North Gulf Coast during the day on Monday. So look for periods of rain with or showers here. Prince William Sound, the Kenai Peninsula areas over to about Yakutat, and again partly mostly cloudy with scattered showers over the Panhandle. Probably see the best chance of sun will be over the southern areas there, but still really not much change in the pattern. That southwesterly wind flow aloft carrying surges of moisture in off the Gulf of Alaska is another one here. Probably will move in on Monday night, and then scattered thunderstorms and showers here over the central and eastern interior, extending back toward Norton Sound. Seward Peninsula's chance of some isolated showers in the afternoon hours. Otherwise, mostly sunny skies here for the Koyukuk, Kobuk valleys, back in across the Noatak Valley. Another mostly sunny day there for the North Slope areas, and again, the western Arctic coast will have the best flying conditions, lower conditions on the east side, and still a risk of some scattered shower activity there from the eastern North Slope down across the east central Brooks Range locations. Well, temperatures this afternoon look like this along the southeast coast. We'll see in the upper 50s to lower 60s here across that area. 59 over at Yakutat, 60 degrees both at Skagway and Juneau this afternoon. Klawock up to 61 and 58 there at Sitka. Otherwise, Cordova had 64, 66 today in Seward with some sunshine there, 65 in Kenai, upper 60s Anchorage Palmer area, and up to 66 degrees at Talkeetna in the Susitna Valley. Copper River Basin, mid 50s, more cloud showers and rain going on over there, so cooler temperatures in that area. Northway seeing some rain today, 60 degrees, but more sun and 74 at Fairbanks this afternoon, and a 71 at Tanana with 68 degrees in the Koyukuk Valley there at Bettle, 61 at Anatuvik, 57 Arctic Village. Along the Arctic coast, temperatures range from 39 at Barrow to 54 degrees over here at Wainwright. Point Lay up to 58 degrees, and a 55 there both at Kotzebue and down at Buckland. 60s here along the southern coast of the Kenai of the Seward Peninsula. Nome was 60 and White Mountain 66. Unalakleet had 58 today. McGrath pushed up to 74 with some shower activity just to the south and southeast. There actually some scattered thunderstorm activity as well. Sleepmute 72. Bethel also pushed up to 70. And then 58 there at Togiak with a 67-degree reading over at King Salmon. Along the Alaska Peninsula, temperatures this afternoon mostly in the lower to mid 50s, and then warming as you head northeastward there. And then out over the Bering Sea, temperatures mostly in the 40s to lower 50s. And the forecast lows for tonight, lower to mid to upper 50s there for the southeast coast, and in the 50s here across southern Alaska. Mildest 55 to 60 here over the west central interior, back along the Yukon Delta coastline and up in toward Kotzebue Sound. Otherwise 30s across the Arctic coast and the North Slope areas, and upper 40s for the Brooks Range. 40s out here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow, much like today, upper 40s to lower 50s out over the Aleutian Island areas, and then mid 70s here from the Seward Peninsula eastward to mid to upper 70s, possibly here for the mid-Tanana Valley areas all the way to the border. Cooler as you head north across the Brooks Range, but still North Slope areas could see temperatures approaching 70 degrees tomorrow, but cooler 40s along the Arctic coast, and highs mostly in the 50s to lower 60s for the Panhandle, and about the same here for the southeast interior and south central Alaska. A little warmer in the Susitna Valley into the mid to possibly high 60s. Looking at flying weather, again, the best chance for thunderstorms, but not the only place they could occur, will be here over the eastern interior and back along the Yukon River to the Nulato Hills areas. And then IFR coming up to the North Gulf Coast from about Yakutat, extending over to Cordova, and then southwestward with marginal VFR up the west side of Cook Inlet, marginal VFR into the southeast coast here and northward there. It's marginal for Kodiak Island, IFR on the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, and a lot of IFR out here over the southeast Bering Sea, eastern Aleutian areas, and the Pribilof Islands with marginal VFR extending northward to St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait, and then again with that offshore easterly flow keeping VFR conditions on the western Arctic coast with the areas of IFR and marginal stuff on the east side. Taking a look at the passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR today or for tomorrow, and also for Adigan as well. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR becoming marginal throughout the day, especially on those eastern entrances, will be the lowest conditions. That same forecast for rainy as well. IFR or marginal VFR, eastern entrance, kind of trending downward throughout the afternoon. Windy, marginal VFR. Isabel, marginal. Mentasta looks VFR. Tanita, marginal conditions at times. Portage, eastern entrance, possible IFR there. Otherwise, marginal VFR throughout the day. And for Chilkoot and White, pretty marginal for both of those passes. And for the freezing levels here at about 8,000 feet across much of mainland Alaska, including the southeast coast here, even out to the west, about 8,000 feet, so not much of a variation, or actually, 6,000 feet, so about 2,000 feet cooler out here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, but still not much of a variation at all. Icing threats, narrow areas of light to isolated moderate rime icing here, Kodiak Island, up over the southwest interior, could be some of that here up along the North Gulf Coast. Kenai Peninsula and Prince William Sound areas, as well as the Alaska Peninsula here in the eastern Aleutians. Looking at the upper level wind flow chart, the main jet here well to the south, upper level low tracking slowly eastward to about this position tomorrow, right around the Alaska Peninsula area there. And that's going to keep southeast flow weak, but that'll continue to bring those surges and bands of showers into the North Gulf Coast and then rotating west-northwestward into the interior as they dissipate. Less of that activity up here to the north and the west, but that's southwest flow. It's going to keep even the southeast coast in the shower threat here for the next couple of days. And at 9,000 feet, pretty light winds over the interior here, just 5 to 15 knots from the east. Southeasterlies 10 to 15 along the Panhandle, and otherwise westerlies up to 25 knots here on the southern side of that low there across the eastern Aleutians. And looking at 3,000 feet, westerlies up to 30 knots there across the Fox Islands, otherwise 15 knots southwesterlies, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island. Easterly winds at 10 to 15 knots up across the northern interior. A little brisker along the Arctic coast, the east side there up to 25 knots from the east-northeast, and also east-northeasterlies at 20 knots on the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, pretty light winds here over the interior, 5 to 15 knots, even lighter across the southern mainland areas. light southeast winds here for the Panhandle. Turbulence-wise, possibly below 3,000 feet of the light isolated moderate varieties here from about Barrow all the way down to Cape Lisburne and Point Hope there on the western Arctic coast. And then for the Fox Islands and the central Aleutian areas below 4,000 feet, the same type light isolated moderate chop. So really nothing too serious turbulence-wise across the entire state. Forecast for tomorrow. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
The beach on the southeast side of Montague Island stretches for nearly 80 miles of pristine wilderness. At least it looks pristine from a few thousand feet up. As our helicopter descends towards the shore, big chunks of white styrofoam come into view.
You can see all the big globs of styrofoam? That's all tsunami debris. Yeah, there's more styrofoam out here. There's no question.
Chris Pallister would know. He's president of the nonprofit Gulf of Alaska Keeper. The group has been cleaning up marine debris that washes onto Alaska's shores for 11 years. And when the tsunami debris began arriving last spring, their job got a whole lot harder. Pallister has visited Montague Island nearly a dozen times since then. And by the time we land and step onto the pebble beach, he's shaking his head in disgust.
I mean, you're basically standing in a landfill out here.
Pallister points to an area scattered with styrofoam bits smaller than packing peanuts.
So you see what's happening here with all the crushed up styrofoam now? This is what we're worried about. This styrofoam's just going to get all ground up. And you can see there's just be billions, trillions of little bits of styrofoam scattered all over everything.
The smaller it gets, the more concerning it is.
The smaller it gets, little pieces like this, is virtually impossible to clean it up. I mean, to clean this up right here, you have to take out all this organic matter with it and, you know, extrapolate that all up and down this coastline. It's kind of an impossible job.
The trash is not just an eyesore. Pallister says voles, birds, and even bears are eating the styrofoam and plastic. He's also worried about chemicals. Among the debris, he finds containers that held kerosene, gas, and other petroleum products. Even the little containers worry him. Sifting through the trash, he picks up a small blue bottle and unscrews the cap to inspect its contents.
I have no idea what this was. It looks like just dish soap, maybe, laundry detergent, but it's empty, which is maybe not a good sign. But there's thousands of bottles like this all up and down the coast, from small household chemical items to drums full of chemicals, big industrial-sized drums.
Marine debris is not a new issue in Alaska, but the Japanese tsunami has magnified the problem many times over. Pallister says the tsunami debris doesn't have the visceral impact of the Exxon Valdez spill, with oiled animals and blackened coastlines, but he thinks in the long run it could be a bigger environmental disaster.
In a lot of ways, it's a lot worse than the oil spill, both in the geographic scope of it and the chemicals that are coming with it. And who knows what the impacts are going to be. And they're going to be really difficult to measure because they're spread out spatially. And, you know, it's going to be a very difficult scientific issue to sort that all out, I think.
Officially, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has only recorded 20 tsunami debris items that have landed in Alaska, but the agency will only confirm an object if it has a unique identifier that can be traced back to Japan. The state of Alaska does not use the same strict standard. Last summer, the state paid for an aerial survey to inspect 2,500 miles of Alaska's coastline. Elaine Bussey Floyd is acting director of the Division of Environmental Health. She says the survey identified tsunami debris all along the flight path from southern southeast up to Prince William Sound and out the Alaska Peninsula.
There was tsunami debris literally on every beach that was photographed. They took over 8,000 pictures, and it was more widespread and greater quantities than we even expected.
But so far, there has been minimal funding for cleaning up the debris. Governor Sean Parnell didn't include any tsunami debris funding in his budget. NOAA is figuring out how to distribute a $5 million gift from Japan, and Alaska's congressional delegation is working to get federal funds. But tsunami debris cleanup money was stripped from a bill for Hurricane Sandy relief that passed this week.
Look at this mess here.
Back on the beach, as the waves crash in, Chris Pallister says the debris could have serious impacts on fisheries and subsistence resources.
I don't know if it's being taken seriously enough. I don't think a lot of people that are going to be impacted by it know how bad it is right now. And until that gets out, maybe not much is going to happen. But I think we're kind of getting to the tipping point now where a lot of people in the state and federal agencies realize the gravity of this situation, and they're all working pretty hard now to get a handle on the scope of the problem and trying to develop funding sources. But as of yet, that hasn't happened. But it's a huge problem. It's going to take years to clean this mess up.
Pallister guesses it will take tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars to remove the debris. On this day, though, he has to leave it all on the island.
All right, we better go back.
Okay. We take off in the helicopter and head north along the beach. Pallister looks out the window at all the debris below and says it just goes on and on and on. On Montague Island, I'm Annie Fight. It's a brilliantly sunny day in early March, and Pallister's visiting Montague to get a handle on how much new debris washed up on the island over the winter. He also needs to check on debris his crew collected into heavy-duty bags called super sacks last summer. Pallister wants to make sure they held up over the punishing winter months. Pallister measures debris not by the pound, but by the ton. And on outer Montague Island, he estimates there's 20 to 30 tons of debris per mile. He guesses about half of it is from the tsunami and half is the usual marine trash that's been washing up in increasing amounts for decades. Last summer, he used funding from the legislature and other sources to begin cleaning up the first 3 miles of the island's coast.
There's another almost 70 miles to do on this shoreline. And we spent probably close to 60 days cleaning these few miles that we did here. So this is a huge, huge problem. This island is really bad.
The state identified Montague as one of 9 priority areas for tsunami debris cleanup. There are other hotspots from the southern tip of southeast and as far west as the islands off of Kodiak. Japan gave the United States $5 million for cleaning up debris in all the West Coast states. So far, Alaska has received the biggest chunk of that money, $1 million. Alaska's situation is vast coastline, often inaccessible even to small landing craft, combined with huge quantities of debris. He says it will cost millions more just to clean Montague.
There's actually a lot of new stuff here. People always ask me, why do you do this? Why would you keep doing this if it keeps coming back? And I just tell them that you clean your kitchen counters. This is where we get our sustenance in this state. The intertidal area is where a lot of our fishing resources and all that came from. So I say this is our kitchen counter, and a rational person keeps their kitchen counters clean.
Welcome back. Well, there really hasn't been much change in the mean position of the ice edge over the last week. Starting off the eastern coast and extending eastward, a little bit farther to the north, and with continued light southeasterly flow, the main ice edge may push back to the northwest, 15 to maybe 25 nautical miles by Wednesday. On to the marine forecasts here. South to southeast winds 10 to 15 knots along the outer coastline, and about the same over the inside waters, but Lynn Canal, northern Lynn Canal up to 20 knots from the south, both Sunday and Monday, and 15 knot winds in store for the central and southern inside waters for Monday. The outer coastline all southerly at about 15 knots with seas running 5 to 6 feet. And for the North Gulf Coast, tomorrow, southerlies at about 10 knots, and light southeast winds for Prince William Sound and the western Gulf Coast, southeast 15 across the Barren Islands into Kamishak Bay. Otherwise, light variable winds here for Shelikof Strait, and south at about 15 there for the east side of Kodiak Island, light southerly winds for Cook Inlet. Then on Monday, they'll switch around. Easterlies here for northern Cook Inlet at about 10 knots, light southeast winds there for the Prince William Sound area, and also south winds 15 knots there for the North Gulf Coast. The arrow must have fallen off. And southeasterlies at about 15 knots here for the western Gulf Coast down across the Barren Islands. Light variable winds again for Shelikof Strait, southwest at 15 there along the east side of Kodiak Island. And for Bristol Bay tomorrow, southeast winds at about 10 knots with pretty slight seas. Southerlies at 15 here for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, but on the Pacific side, small craft advisories for those southwest winds up to 25 knots along with 10-foot seas. And that drops off a little bit on Monday on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula here. Light variable winds from Bristol Bay all the way down to Cape Sarachev. And on the Pacific side, west or southwest winds up to 20 knots with those seas running 8 to 10 feet. And for the Aleutians, for the Fox Islands, westerlies 20 to 30 knots tomorrow with seas running 6 to 12 feet in that area. Otherwise, for the central Aleutian, small craft advisories as well. There are 25 to 30 knot winds out of the west, diminishing here as you head west out to Shimia down to just 15 knots. And then the outlook for Monday, light variable winds here for the western marine zones, and then westerlies 15 to 25 knots for the central Aleutians, and west to southwest 15 to 25 knots for the Fox Islands with seas running 5 to 10 feet. And for the southwest coast, light variable winds at about 10 knots here for really the entire stretch of the coastline. Northeast 20 knots for St. Lawrence Island, lighter into the northern Bering Sea, light northeast winds for the Pribilofs. And then those will all become light and variable at about 10 knots here along the southwest coast for the Pribilof Islands. Northerlies at 15 for the northern Bering Sea and north at about 20 for St. Lawrence Island. Tomorrow, east-northeasterlies 15 to 20 knots on the eastern Arctic coast, and small craft advisories here, northeast 25 knots for the western Arctic coast, Wales to Cape Lisburne about north at 20 knots. And then looking ahead to Monday's outlook, easterly winds, east-northeasterlies 15 knots here along the coastline. But again, small craft advisories for the western Arctic coast, 20-knot winds from Wales up to Cape Beaufort here on the western side. For tonight, again, mostly cloudy with scattered showers over just about all of the southern interior, less clouds and less shower activity to the north with none back here to the north and west. So it looks pretty good for the Seward Peninsula. Rain spreading up the Alaska Peninsula toward Kodiak Island, but this trough weakening, so that'll probably just be a narrow band of showers by the time it gets to Kodiak Island late tonight and throughout the day tomorrow, but still kind of showery here back across Bristol Bay and all of the southwest interior. Scattered showers, scattered thunderstorms here, mostly over the eastern interior areas back toward the eastern Norton Sound zone, and still mostly cloudy with scattered showers or areas of rain across the southeast coast, and that holds into Monday as well. A little bit better chance of rain here along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and southern Kenai Peninsula, but really not much change over the next couple of days over much of mainland Alaska. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.